Happy Wednesday, September 10th. What a day. What a day. We've got TED Sports Indianapolis happening here this week. Started yesterday, goes through to tomorrow. And so far it's been a great event here in Indianapolis. Today's webinar is an exciting one. They're all really exciting. This one is going to focus on really how to get your business ready to win in AI. Hopefully get you asking questions about your business. Some maybe you are already asking, but maybe taking new angles on the types of questions to ask, to really see how ready are you to leverage AI, as a business as this world continues to evolve. So as we dig in, for everyone who's been here before, you kind of know the routine. Our goal is just to go over, at least one new insight and prompt each time we do these each month to help you learn creative ways to use AI. We try to have fun, laugh, and joke. I'm very sarcastic, so for those that have attended, probably know that by now. But yeah, so we're excited. The agenda's typically always the same. Try to recap our last topic discussed, share any trending news, do some live demo time, and then some Q&A. If you're interested in prior AI Wisdom Wednesdays, we've got this QR code here that you can use and scan to get to a landing page that'll have all the different AI Wisdom Wednesdays that we've hosted. A lot of different topics. Some you may find very interesting, and feel free to watch them there, sort of on demand. All right, let's go into some trending AI news. And my goal is to get to a little bit of a demo on how to leverage this AI readiness stuff. But a few updates. Actually been, for the world of AI, I'd say a little less exciting in the last 30 days in terms of new features. There's been a lot of infrastructure news and things that are happening that's, probably doesn't excite a lot of people, but I'll update you on some of that too. But Manus, a platform we have sort of showcased and demoed in AI Wisdom Wednesday, has introduced what they're calling web page templates. So this is the platform that was the first to introduce slides. It's the ability to create slide decks. It's actually pretty decent. I've not played around with this web page set of templates yet, but take a look at it. This is with Manus, and this was just released within the last 30 days or since we last spoke. They also have a new feature called, Mail Manus, which is essentially something they've created to be able to email your email. So you just forward to your sort of custom Manus bot inbox or email address, and then you can take action on those emails. So maybe you've summarized some meeting notes, or you've got a really, maybe a long chain of emails you want to forward to Manus. Then you can highlight within that, forward email what you want it to do. It's like, prepare a summary of this email chain, or provide the action items, or create a presentation. So lots of interesting, unique things you can do with that. Of course, always be careful what you forward an email over to these chatbots. Some big kind of news that we'll start seeing more and more of with AI images and then video. OpenAI just announced, since we last spoke, they're actually working on a feature-length film that'll be animated, that'll come out in 2026. So there's this idea that some people think, and this is one of the reasons there was the writer's block or strike two years ago, not writer's block, writer's strike a couple years ago. That's why some new movie creation slowed down, was people were worried that AI was going to take over writing scripts and creating movies to the point where any of us could just say, hey, you know what, I want to watch a film about XYZ with my kids tonight, create it. Well, it looks like that's kind of becoming a reality. So we're getting our first animated film by OpenAI, which was posted on X. It was a tweet that somebody posted. Elon Musk then replied to that. Somebody had asked, hey, think we'll be able to get 30-minute episodes with Grok Imagine, and when? So for those that have been on these Wisdom Wednesday before, Grok Imagine is the image generation, video generation side of Grok. He replied in 4 to 6 months. So there's this push to create longer duration video content capability within these platforms. So within the next 4 to 6 months, we will probably demo. I don't know how long it'll take to generate, but we're going to be looking to generate 30-minute AI videos, which is wild. Absolutely wild to think that's coming. Another sort of interesting update since we last spoke, and this may impact us all. more so in 2026, but it's kind of fun to keep an eye on it. Optimus, they sort of teased a picture at Tesla showing a newer look for Optimus. They've got their Tesla, sort of big Tesla event coming up, I believe, here this fall. We'll showcase some of the new capabilities. So this is the at-home robot that they're working on with, I believe, the current goal. It will be getting these in production and in homes in 2026. But if you notice here, they tease that the hands have continued to be updated for dexterity and other things, but pretty wild stuff. I'm looking forward to being a first buyer of the Optimus robot. In other app update news, Grok is evolving fast. I think we mentioned on the last call, just, it's one you got to pay attention to. And if you're not using it, at least have an account, so you can jump in and use the free version from time to time. A lot of times app updates can be a good indication of some internal updates depending on the type of app or software you're using. And so one way to kind of compare, the speed of development, innovation at these different companies, just to look at how often are their apps updated in iOS. And this was as of August 22nd. So I think about a week after we're very close to our last AI Wisdom Wednesday. Elon Musk had posted this just in terms of how many updates in 2 weeks, they were generating relative to the competition. So again, definitely take a look at Grok and make sure you have an account and are playing around with it here and there. Grok also ranked number 2 in a 2025 study of sort of the highlight AI chatbots. They came out of nowhere. Again, I think that's kind of the thing that struck people is they only started like 2 years ago, and they jumped from a nobody to number 2. ChatGPT is still number 1, but you can sort of see some of the other ones here. We've done a little bit with Gemini on our AI Wisdom Wednesdays. You've got Claude. We've not done anything with DeepSeek, and then you got some of these others here as well. Okay, let's get into some AI readiness self-assessment. And the idea here is not for this to be meant to be boring, but we're going to try to hit a couple of these pretty quick, and I'm going to show how to use sort of a self-assessment in a prompt that you can use after today's Wisdom Wednesday. So one thing I'm often asking myself, it's something we learned and talk about a lot at Notre Dame in the program I was at in data science, which is how do you know if you have what you need to even participate in AI? And so we thought about hey, what does a readiness framework sort of look like? And I like these 5 areas. So we've talked about before data and the importance of just getting your initial data in place, and we'll talk about that in a second. What processes do you have in place today as a company, in business, and we'll talk about that. What content do you have? Is it just sitting out there and 3, 4, 5 years old? Is that content updated and really relevant? Because that's the content that's going to be used by these agents, right, to learn about your business and really understand if you're AI ready, right? If somebody goes to search for your business in ChatGPT, what content are they using and how defined is that? Looking at the culture of your business, is everybody on your team ready to use AI, interested in using AI, starting to think about how to use it? And then what tools should we be using as a business together? How are we collectively working and rowing in the same direction? And so we're going to talk about that. There's several areas of the landscape with AI that we've talked about, and we work on at Upper Hand. This top left, you have data analytics, which is just your traditional, data analysis. Your reporting, that's still very important for a business to be able to understand, their own data, right? How they're trending, things like that. Automation is not sort of robotic. We're talking automation in terms of agents, AI agents, the ability for you to give a task to a ChatGPT, and it can execute that complicated task, as you stand back and just sort of let that agent work. And we got to be thinking about how are we AI ready with respect to automation as a business. And if we can't do basic data analytics and maintain that, we're never going to have good automation, because the agent's going to be using bad data. Customer experience is kind of an interesting one. It's not sort of customer experience in the traditional sense of, hey, how are you going to talk to your customers about it? It's more about where is AI taking place, right? So, for us as a business at Upper Hand, we have to think about, okay, it's great to create a chatbot, that maybe lets our customers talk to their own data, but is that where that should live, right? What's the customer experience? Is it Should it be more in line with different aspects of our software that you talk to your data? Should it be its own separate app? Should it be something you're doing an email? Should it be something you're doing on your phone? So where people interact with AI is very important. I think that's also important for your own business as you start to think about not just, all right, how does our staff interact with AI, but eventually it's going to be the parents, it's going to be your clients and your customers as well. And thinking about, okay, well, if we want to start to produce some AI, generation and opportunities for our customers, what will that look like for them? And then decision support. So AI is, creating these outputs for us and these things to do to help us make better decisions. But how are we tracking whether that decision is a good decision or a bad decision? And okay, let's go back and what did we use to create, the output that gave us those decision options? And so Gartner talks about this, quite a bit in terms of decision analytics and being in a place where a business, can really start to track what decisions you're making from AI output to help sort of shape your direction overall. So we're going to go through these pillars real quick, and then we'll jump into using a prompt to help with this AI readiness. But real quick, and I'm not going to read through everything, right? I don't want to bore you guys down. That's not the point. But the goal is to get you thinking, right? So we talk about data readiness a ton. This has to do with data quality. How accurate is data, that you have today? Are you working with, a couple spreadsheets that have been, they're not uniform in how they're formatted. They're coming from different places. They don't mean the same thing. How accessible is that data for your team, right? Can everybody access that and use it? How much of that data are you willing to let a staff person, copy and paste into ChatGPT? And that's kind of part of your data governance. What does the policy look like as a business? Everybody's looking for a competitive edge. Gartner warns about that, saying, some people are just going to say, you know what, everybody's using it. Yeah, I don't want people to have my data, but at the end of the day, if I don't, start using it and just feed it my data, I'll fall behind. That will have a boomerang effect. I can guarantee that will happen at some point in the next year or two. So just be smart about what data you're putting in there. And then you got to still clean your data. Just because we do it once, doesn't mean it's done, right? So wherever you're getting that data from, we've got to make sure you're regularly keeping it up to date and clean and organized so that it can be used. So we've talked about this plenty. We don't need to hash it out, but your AI system, the AI you use, is only as good as the data that the AI is trained on, right? In pillar 2, the readiness or the process, this is a little bit straightforward, but the extent to key business processes are already automated. For example, what are you going to use with AI, right? If you're going to analyze maybe pricing, what are the steps that are you're going to take to do that? Is it repeatable? So when you want to go back and revisit, price increase or price changes in a year, what AI tool did you use? What was the prompt, et cetera? And what were the decisions that were made when you did that? And then process just efficiency, kind of pretty standard business language. But some key questions you can ask yourself, and that we ask ourselves pretty regularly to help assess. This will be part of the assessment we'll send out after the webinar. But are your processes documented? How much of your workflow is currently automated that you're trying to automate? What are the workflows you're trying to automate? Starting there. How are you going to measure, efficiency and success in using these tools? There are many times I've gone to, create something with these platforms like ChatGPT, and the output looks fantastic. I read it, in the first, couple paragraphs, like, wow, this is going to be really good. And then as you get in, it gets very watered down, and you start to realize, okay, this is all, this is wrong. This is not accurate in any way. So how are you thinking about measuring, the efficiency of the output when you're dealing with processed AI in your processes? Content ready, I kind of mentioned this at the very beginning, but this is important, right? Because your content is data. Anything that's out on the internet is data that's training these models. So it's important to make sure that you've got, high quality, relevant content, something we're doing regularly at Upper Hand. I know Sebastian who spends a lot of time thinking about, how do we update, our own landing pages, the information about Upper Hand, for our current customers and future customers. It's not easy. It takes a lot to organize, what's out there. Sometimes we'll use some spreadsheets to know what what pages, sort of go where, and how that targets certain groups. But think about how to organize that content for your website and other aspects of marketing, right? Your Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. And then, our content channels, targeted and personalized as much as they need to be. Again, anything that's out there today is going to be used to train these models. So you want to keep this stuff up to date and relevant to your current business. You don't want to be trying to sell and do something that's, new and innovative with AI that's trained on, something that you did 10, 15 years ago on your website. So that becomes more and more important to stay up to date. Some helpful questions that you can ask, and again, we'll have as part of this assessment. Are you personalizing content? How well organized is it? Some of the things I've just mentioned. With cultural readiness, this is pretty straightforward. Most of our customers, there's 1 to 2 sort of owners of that business. Typically anywhere from 2 to 5, probably staff. Full-time staff members. You can range from 5 to 20. Instructors, trainers, part-time employees rather. And think about, what's the mindset towards AI? Have we given them, are we all using the same language when we talk about it? What is that? Do we meet regularly, right? As a team and a company, at least kind of like our AI Wisdom Wednesdays. Are you meeting as a business to just have those conversations? And as new tools come out, we're changing, and we're making sure people are adapting to how much change is currently happening in the AI world today. Some of the success factors, obviously you've got to be committed as the leader. I'm constantly learning. I put these Wisdom Wednesdays together. I always feel like I don't know anything because it's all changed since the last time we talked. And we have to be transparent with each other, right? We're using a tool that works. You got to tell your staff. If you use a tool that doesn't work, you got to let them know. Because it'll help save them some time. And then we get into the tools, right? So what tools are we using? Hopefully these AI Wisdom Wednesdays have helped, but you've got to identify, okay, who and what are we using to store our data, to organize, clean that data? What tool are we using to do data analytics, reporting? And then what AI tools are we feeding, and going to feed that data into? Are we going to be on ChatGPT? Are we going to be on Grok? How much of that data are we willing to share? I think I've mentioned this many times, but typically if I want to use an AI chatbot, I'm only going to put 100 de-identified rows of data in there. I would never put personal information in there, and then would really just try to only do a subset of that data to try to see what that output looks like, and then work from there. But that's up to you, right? And so that kind of gets into okay, what tools we're using, and then what's our company governance and policy around using those tools. That's going to be very important, especially as somebody puts something in they shouldn't, and then something happens. You want to be able to backtrack and say, hey, here's our policy and what you should have been doing. And then data science capabilities. So this starts to get into a little bit more around understanding. Hey, we want to do some predictions. We want to run our own models. Not AI chatbots aren't great at everything. Some forecasting for financials and other things are still better done in the data science world, and probably will be for a little while. So some key assessment questions. Again, won't go through those. Those will be part of the actual readiness assessment, which is going to look like this. Pretty standard way to measure yourself in a framework. So you've got your five pillars wrapped around here. You can grade them from a 1 to 5, and then sum them up, and you'll get sort of where you land as it relates to your score. So you're either beginner, intermediate, or advanced sort of AI readiness. And then we're going to develop an action plan. So that's the part we're going to do a live demo of. We pause there, see if there are any questions anybody might have. All right. Cool. Let's keep going, because time should be okay to run this prompt here in a second. All right. So just ending, kind of recapping the readiness journey. This stuff is taken from our experience with our own customers in AI. We typically have to assess what is the current state of their business, in terms of readiness. A lot of people they've got a lot of data, but a lot of times it's very, very dirty and unorganized, and it takes quite a while to fix it and get it ready. We'll try to focus on a particular area, what's important to you as the business, and start there, and then build from that. And then we'll build the capabilities around that. But we do start small. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. We've tried before actually going, hey, we're gonna go real big, and then it just takes forever and it's not good for anyone. So start small with these initiatives, measure steady progress as a team, and try to build on some skills and find partners to help you as well. We'll make a readiness scorecard available and send this after the webinar for everyone to use. All right, so live demo time. So what I wanted to do was I thought it'd be really cool to take this AI readiness self-assessment. So let's kind of imagine a scenario where either you're doing it yourself, or you have each member on your team fill it out, and then you maybe average out your scores. But you basically start having a conversation as a team, and hey, how are we using AI? What's our readiness as a business? And then putting that into and comparing it to what a $300,000 consultant would be able to produce by using ChatGPT and Grok. And so we're going to do that right now. All right, so I grabbed, I just Googled Indianapolis field hockey, mudsock field hockey came up. So that's the one I was going to use. Let me walk through what the prompt looks like for you. Give me a second. All right, got a new chat started here. And let me start a new one here. All right. Again, we'll share this prompt as a part of our post AI Wisdom Wednesday follow-up. But some things you're going to want to customize. So you'll see here we're setting the prompt saying you're a world-class consultant. We're using McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and Gartner, specialize in sports technology and AI transformation. You've been hired to deliver a $300,000 strategic analysis for a youth field hockey facility business in the United States. So you want to change this right to your segment. We then put in the domain, so the website, and then we said the mission is to use the 5-pillar framework to identify some key trends, threats, disruptive innovations, and deliver actionable strategic recommendations to try to improve our readiness and then accelerate our business growth. Then we got some client context. So you'll want to update this stuff. And again, in our prompt template, we'll showcase where to do that. This can be analyzed from the website, so you're good there. Then we just go through and apply some of that consultant aspects of the template. So we're going to have them look at the business model, look at our AI readiness evaluation, which then puts in each one of the pillars for us here. We have it then do some industry-specific benchmarking, so looking at the competitive landscape. We're going to do market trends, emerging opportunities, and then ask it to give us a strategic recommendation framework that'll provide some action items that we can take. And then each recommendation should include, which pillars it referring to, and some other details to help us understand those action items. And then the final deliverables are we want a summary, executive summary of what they found, a brief that should be a presentation format. Okay. If you do the AI readiness assessment, sort of on paper, or in a meeting, this is where you can plug in your scores. So let's say your total score is like a 3.5. So you could put, I want to increase my score from 3.5 to 4.5. Okay, I'm just leaving it blank for now, but that's where you could put that in. And then we've got our final output items. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and hit send. I'm actually going to copy and paste this. And let's compare this output to Grok. All right. So this may take a second. Searching the web. All right. So here's our very expensive consulting analysis, something that would have cost us a lot of money. And they do reference their what they're using from the internet for that. So do check references. That stuff still matters. But here you go. You got your current readiness assessment. This is what they think the readiness assessment is. Stands at 1.5 out of 5, with most pillars ranging 1 to 2. Compared to the youth sports industry is 2.5 out of 5. I'd probably agree with that. Sports is a lagger when it comes to technology. on the business side. This is derived from youth sports AI adoption metrics. So things you can sort of look at there. But then it jumps down and provides business model assessment, and then the AI readiness evaluation. So this is helpful because now this is part of that, hey, let's have that internal discussion. How do we improve? So what data readiness? Okay, so it knows we're basically using registration attendance data collected from the platform that the Mudstock Field Hockey is using. But are there opportunities to track performance, and the success of athletes? What sort of financial data visibility is there? Are there any engagement analytics, right? So there may be. This is all just being assessed off of the initial website. So we'd use this, right? Now we start a conversation with our team internally. Okay, guys, we want to go from a 1 to a 3 or a 4. What other data do we have, as a Mudstock team? And all right, let's identify who they are, who's in charge of those data sources, maintaining them and getting them ready to use. And so we would do that going down through this to understand where we score. And then you're also getting some industry benchmarks and competitive landscapes against your business to understand how you can grow a little faster with the AI readiness in mind. And then you're getting some really good strategic recommendations. So here they're even recommending some different players in the space that might be relevant to this business, like streaming of the league games, which they may already do, but based on the website, it's not showing that it does. So some pretty good recommendations. Now we could say, hey, we could follow up this prompt response and say, hey, we appreciate the 6 to 18 months and 18 plus months, but we want strategic recommendations between now and for the next 12 months only. So we can get more things we can do today, as opposed to sort of waiting for some of the long-term stuff. It gives you a little timeline. So really good output. And again, we could follow up with this prompt and get more specific as you guys have learned with some of the stuff we've done together. Okay. Grok, let's see what they put out here. So again, it's going to be very similar. They've got some different sources. I actually don't know if SFIA is one of the leaders in analytics. So let's see if they reference them at all. Doesn't look like it. Hey, there's upper hand. Cool. Yeah, so I like the sources that are being used here from Grok. SFIA is the leader in sports team trends for what we're looking at. So a really good one. So again, use both. Like do this in both. That's why I said at the start of this, create your Grok account. Do them both. Take the pieces. They actually score this business. It looks like a little bit higher than what ChatGPT did. Gives some different types of recommendations. And let's actually see what the action items are. So some quick wins. Integrate basic analytics. Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually spot on with the real world. I mean, most people don't even have basic analytics to see their data, all their data sources in one place. But we see that. So we'll have somebody that says, hey, we want to start using AI. It's like, okay, well, where's your data, right? It always goes back to starting with data, because at the end of the day, all of this is statistics. And then this starts to get into some more innovative stuff, right? Well, let's launch a digital parent engagement portal. That's totally doable. And much easier to do if you have your data in a place that you can use it and leverage it. So that's great. This is definitely easy. So I like these recommendations, I'd say, relative to ChatGPT. But again, use both, right? I think they both are giving decent output. So let me pause there. I know we went through our stuff. We're at 2:02. I try to stay on time. People have jobs and have a lot of work to do. So let me stop sharing. If there's any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for joining, and happy Wednesday, September 10th. Thank you.